One back tuning into today's video, we're going to have a look at weather for the next 8 to 10 days today, which is taking us more or less to the end of September. It's going to be taking us from around the 28th to the 29th, 30th September, something like that. So, yeah, we're getting right to the end of the month now, and once we get past September, of course, we're well on into the autumn now. We're going to be properly into autumn when we get into October. So have a look at the chart, see what's going on. We've got high pressure coming up over the weekend. It's going to turn it drier and warmer. That's going to last into the start of next week, but it's really pinning down where that high pressure is going as we go through next week. That's posing quite a lot of problems and questions. Now, before I go on with that, just want to talk about the advertising. There's green keyword ads on my pages at GazWeatherVids.com. When you roll your cursor over green keywords, they display ads, but when you click through the words, you go to advertise website, and you're supporting GazWeatherVids.com when you do that. So we'll just very quickly start off with the 500 millibar height anomalies. The 500 millibar height anomalies are basically indicating temperature to 18,000 feet, 500 millibars, and that extrapolates to where we've got areas of high pressure and low pressure. We've got the ECMWF here on the left, and the GFS is on the right. The orange colours then are indicating above average temperatures, that's above average pressure, and the blue colours indicating below average temperatures, that's below average pressure or low pressure. These are the anomalies for 8 to 10 days time, so as I say, that's taking us more or less to the end of September now. The ECMWF is going for a big area of above average height sitting here to the northwest of the British Isles, so out in the Atlantic going up towards Greenland and on into the Arctic, also stretching out in towards western parts of Canada and down into North America as well. Now we've got a bit of a trough of low pressure setting up to the north and the northeast of the country here, indicated by those blue colours. What's basically happening is that high pressure is pulling out to the west of the country, and we're starting to fill the space up with a trough of low pressure, but it's a pretty tentative sort of process. That's quite a weak signal. The GFS is much stronger with this. There's the ridge of high pressure out to the west and the northwest of the country, stretching to the west of Ireland really, and going out into the Atlantic on up towards Greenland. But look at this trough of low pressure it's setting up over Scandinavia, a big area above below average heights there over Scandinavia. So that's turning it increasingly cool. High pressure still just about close enough to keep it settled, but certainly a lot cooler, and it wouldn't take much to place under this trough of low pressure that's building over Scandinavia. But I think that trough could be a little bit overdone actually. But the idea from both models really is that we're taking the high pressure more out to the west as we get through to the latter stages of September, and probably turning it cooler and perhaps somewhat more unsettled as well. These are the GFS temperature ensembles. These are for the upper atmosphere, but they're useful down at the surface. The red line is where we should be at this time of year, of course. All members of the ensemble are going to be going above that red line over the next few hours, so it's going to be turning warmer. And as going to the end of the weekend, at the start of next week, we get a really warm spell coming up, actually, with temperatures getting up to 15 Celsius at 15 millibars. That's proper warm air coming back again, so that could take temperatures up towards the mid-20s, perhaps, for some parts of the country early next week. But from around the 24th to 25th of September, look how much scatter we're starting to get. Now, some members of the ensemble are certainly keeping it quite warm as we go through from around the 25th to say the 30th, but a lot of the members are turning it much, much cooler. Many members are dipping below that red line as well, so a huge amount of scatter there setting up from around the 25th of September, and that's just really implying that where that high pressure is going and how much of a trough we're setting up over Scandinavia is very difficult to ascertain. It's going to be dry though coming up for the next week or so, hardly any precipitation spikes to speak of, but then once we get through to the end of the month, so this is 27th here, once we get past the 27th, we do start to fling the precipitation spikes back, and we keep them as we go out into the start of October. So probably implying as we get to the very end of September, it may turn a little bit more unsettled once again. Temperature anomalies for the next week, the 19th to 26th of September, showing that we're going to be about normal, maybe on the positive side of normal, just we're in those very pale pink colours. So that's more or less on the plus side of normal, but we're not going to be deviating that far from a seasonal average, really, I don't think, and that's because despite that having quite warm days, we'll probably have quite chilly nights, and then it could turn more generally cooler from around the middle of next week onwards. The rainfall anomalies, precipitation anomalies for the next week show it's going to be dry. Virtually the whole of the country having below average precipitation. Remember, red cards across much of England and Wales indicating that virtually no rain is going to be falling at all. So have a look at the generic chances for GFS first of all. Here's the high pressure sitting over the country and stretching out into Central Europe at the start of next week. That's got some really warm air associated with it. So I think we will be seeing temperatures up to 23, 24, possibly 25 degrees by day in good sunny spells up into the mid to maybe just getting up towards the 77 Fahrenheit mark, but certainly around the mid 70s Fahrenheit for the start of next week. But let's go through to the middle of next week. That's when we start to get that complication coming. The high pressure still wants to hang on across central and eastern parts of British Isles and stretching into Central Europe, but we're also bringing a cold front down here associated with this low pressure to the north of Scotland. We've also got another ridge of high pressure out in the Atlantic, so cooler air is trying to force its way southwards. On this particular run of the GFS, well, the midnight run, this is one of the cooler versions actually. That high pressure to the east of the country over Central Europe begins to decline away, and we pull down much cooler air as we go through to the middle of next week. We still have high pressure dominating, but that's in a much cooler air mass now from around Wednesday onwards, so we'll be seeing temperatures back down probably no better than the seasonal average. It would be cold by night. And as we go through beyond that towards the 27th, remember on the height anomaly chart, GFS was setting up that big trough of low pressure over Scandinavia. There it is, setting up on Friday the 27th. The high pressure still just about hanging on to the west of the country, but eventually that high pressure is going to go up towards the north of Scandinavia. That trough of low pressure is going to be sitting there over Scandinavia itself. We're going to start to pull in, if this is right, a much cooler north to northeasterly wind once we get through to the end of the month. Still just about dry, but we could be bringing some showers onto the eastern side of the country. That's bringing in much cooler air then once we get through to the start of the towards the end of September, start of October. The upper air temperatures showing this change through next week. We start off very warm across many parts of the country with the upper air temperatures. Keep it into Tuesday, but as we go through to Wednesday, we start to see that cooler air forcing its way southwards, turning it a lot cooler through the middle of next week. And then as we get through to Thursday, the 26th, on into Friday, the 27th, where we keep that cooler air mass and we don't go back to that warmer air mass. And eventually, as we get through to day 10, which is Sunday the 29th of September, then we are bringing that cool air down around that area of high pressure, with high pressures trying to get up towards Scandinavia. Notice it's very cold over Scandinavia, with the -5 isotherm actually covering much of Scandinavia there. That would be cold enough for snow showers across quite a wide part of Scandinavia. That's hard to believe that that's right, but of course we are getting well on into the autumn now. The ECMWF has that mid-latitude high pressure over the country at the start of next week, so it will be a warm start to next week. Then it takes high pressure out to the country, tries to bring that cooler air down. We do bring it down somewhat, but probably not as much as on the GFS. But that high pressure is more or less sitting over the country as we go through into the middle of next week. I think next week is going to be mainly settled and dry. I have to say, I don't think we're going to have much precipitation at all next week. It's just that cold front coming southwards Tuesday, Wednesday. It'll be very weak, but it'll probably be enough to change the air mass. Then the ECMWF wants to take that high pressure off to the east of the country once we get through to the weekend of the 28th, 29th, and bring this area of low pressure in across the country. So we end up very unsettled for the final weekend of September, bringing low pressure in through the country, and probably turning it very much cooler as well. We've got a ridge of high pressure building in the Atlantic and going up towards Greenland. The general idea as you get through to the very end of September and the start of October, I think, is that we're bringing some sort of northern blocking in and turning it a lot cooler, but quite how it happens, very uncertain. And finally, the Canadian model, the GEM, the high pressure, giving us the warm weather to start next week. Then we take high pressure out to the country and bring much cooler air down. So this is sort of in agreement actually with the GFS. I think we will turn it a lot cooler through the middle of next week after that very warm start. Then we keep high pressure influences going through much of next week, so it probably stays largely dry away excuse me, from the northeast. And by the time we get through to day 10, which is Sunday the 29th. Again, we're probably moving that high pressure away to the east and bringing this area of low pressure in off the Atlantic. So it probably ends up similar to the ECMWF. But again, notice all the northern blocking that we've got going on to the north of Scandinavia and stretching out towards Greenland as well. So for the start of October, I would suspect from this that we probably turn it very unsettled, very wet, and probably eventually very cool as well, with northerly winds setting up. So there's a lot of uncertainty going on here, a lot of disagreement between these models about exactly what's happening with this area of high pressure. I think what we can say definitely is that we started next week under high pressure. It'll be very warm. Middle of next week, we're almost certainly, I think, going to turn it a lot cooler as cooler air comes into the high pressure. But we'll keep the high pressure going, so I think much of next week probably very settled. Just will start off very warm, turn it much cooler as we go through the week. And then beyond that, as we get through to the final weekend of September, very difficult to work out what's going on. It'll probably turn unsettled and even cooler, but quite how it's happening is really uncertain. We'll need to do more updates. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.